look at a SOL terminal computer by Processor Technologies, better known as a SOL-20. This is a single board computer, 8080 based, with a keyboard and video out. Probably one of the very first all-in-one personal computers. It has a S100 bus, which was designed by, it was in the Altair 8800. So this is like the next step, where the Altair had no inputs other than the switches on the front. This now has a keyboard and a video out. This is a new pickup for me, and we're going to go at it that it doesn't work. I have no history on this. I've been reading through some of the manuals. There's quite a lot of documentation. This would come as a kit, or you could buy it pre-assembled. So there's quite a good instruction manual on how to build it from a kit. So that really helps. Is going to help us with trying to figure out what's wrong with this, if there's anything wrong with it. Maybe it'll work right out of the get-go. I do not know. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to open it up, see what's inside. There's an S100 backplane that could have cards in it. You can't see from the other side. When I used to get computers, old computers, I'd plug them in, see if they'd work right away. I learned that it's not probably the best idea, because there's things that can blow. The things might not have been turned on for a long time. I don't know the history of this. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to pull it apart and see inside to see if there's like any kind of damage. These things, were made from, I think, 76 to around 79, somewhere around there. So there's a whole bunch of different revisions. We're going to go at this keyboard probably does not work. From what I've read, these keyboards are notorious for failing after a while. There's foam, little foam pads inside that disintegrate, and they just don't work, and they has to be rebuilt. So possibly that's going to be the case. I don't know yet. I haven't plugged this in, haven't opened it up. There's quite a few other different things. There's, in the instruction manual, there's from the beginning boards, there's revisions to, they didn't quite work great out of the shop, so there's tinkering, and wire jumpers had to be made and cuts, and just things to bring it up and keep it working. So let's open it up and see what we got inside. It's in very nice shape for almost 50 years old. Let's see. You got 2 screws on the back. Oh, it also had, so the keyboard, video, it had a cassette for storage built in, so audio out, audio in. Looks like it had motor control, a parallel port, a serial port. Alrighty. It looks like it's fairly easy to take apart. 2 thumb screws at the back. And the lid pops right off. Alright, we have 3 cards in here. Take a look at the first one. The Godbout 8K by 8. So an 8K RAM card. Wow. A lot of heat here. I was reading that some of the earlier models had a transformer that gave out too much power, and it would really put a lot of stress on any add-on cards, and I'm going to say that it's very possible that this transformer is one of the earlier ones that needed a modification to bring the voltage down. You actually had to add a separate transformer, but we'll check the voltages when we get there and then see what that entails. But there's quite a good documentation on how to upgrade this if that's the problem. But I'm seeing this a lot of heat damage there from these regulators have been doing a lot of overtime, so I'm going to say that it's possible that this transformer was one of the original ones that needed modification. And then it looks like we have another Godbout 8x8, so another 8K RAM card. Oh yeah, look at that, the heat damage on that one. So that's going to lead me to believe that this transformer is one of the earlier transformers. I don't see anything added in there. The next card we got, North Star Computers micro disc controller. A disc controller, very good. That's awesome. We can hook up a floppy, possibly, to this. MDCA4, I'll have to research that and see what this is. Not much heat damage on this one. I don't know if it's maybe not been used, or it doesn't draw a lot of current, or it wasn't being used at all and it's just stuck in there after when they shelved it away. This is 1976. Those other cards were around 77. I believe this is made in 76. Alright. Okay. You don't need any cards in there to make it work. Everything's on the single board. It has 2K of ROM and 2K of RAM, 1K for video and 1K for for operating system. Now this is called a personality module, and this is going to be one of the very original ones. So this machine is very early in the production. This has the rare and hard to program 5204 EPROMs, and 4 of them. Later revisions of this card would use the 2716, something more easier to program and deal with. So this is a very early model. This is a very early computer. We're going to leave this out for now. And let's turn it around. I don't see any modifications on the surface of the board. So it just popped right out. Now we're open. What's this? It's got some loose wires. What's that? Vidiot stick. So obviously some sort of light pen. I'll have to look that one up. And it's not attached to anything. It's just tucked in there under the keyboard. So there's a power cable under there from the power supply, and this is a power cable to the back plane. So let us take this keyboard out. And get to that underneath power board. It's quite easy to take apart. 2 screws and the whole covers come right off. They're all kind of like interlocking, which is pretty neat design. Looks like 4 screws. And the keyboard will probably come popping right out. Screw holder bucket. I don't see any modifications or an extra transformer in there, but when we do some readings, we'll be able to tell if it's given too much power. It's mostly on this unregulated supply. There's should be around 8 volts to go to the 5-volt regulators on all these cards. All these cards have their own regulators, so it's an unregulated supply on an S100 bus. The main single board computer has regulated supply, so there's a power supply down in here that's giving out regulated voltage. There's the keyboard, pops right out. Nope, some shims. Alright. So I'm pulling up the schematic. Actually, I'm not going to pull it. I got the schematic pulled up, and I also have the build instructions pulled up. I just wanted to pre-prepare. So the first thing we want to do is check the voltages in the power supply before we apply any voltage to the board itself. We don't want things exploding and blowing up. Get our voltmeter. Let's find a power source here in my mess. Alrighty. Knock all the screws. I need a bigger space. Alright. So, there's a school of thought that you can bring these up with Variacs, reform the capacitors. I find that the older the capacitors, the better chance they are of being still fine. The newer ones seem to have the most failures. Let's just turn it on and hope for no explosions. Well, that's a good sign. No smoke, no fire. Let's start with the unregulated power supply. So theoretically, for the 5-volt regulator, you should have around 8 volts. So we're going to see what we got. And we're also going to check the ripple, which is important on these older power supplies. Some of these big filter capacitors, you see this big blue one here, silver one there, there's a couple more down in there. There's 4 of them on here. There we go. And we have 10.6 volts with about 10 milliamps of ripple, which is fine. That's pretty good. But 10.6 volts is way too high. It should be around 8 volts. So I'm going to say this is one of the transformers that's early transformer needs to have. The modification brings the power down about 20%. So 20% is going to bring it to about 8 volts, which is about right. So let's check out the next one. Okay, that's minus 19. So that should be around 16 volts for the 12 volts, or even 15. So yeah, this is 20% too high. So this transformer is going to need the modification. And the ripple on there is 220 milliamps. It's a little bit high. 10 milliamps is good for these old supplies. So on the plus 19, it's about 10. So let's go to the 5. Or it should be about 8, which is 10. And the ripple is about 10 milliamps too, which is pretty good. So the signals look pretty clear. I think the ripple is a little bit high on the 1, and the 2 capacitors down there, they filter for the 19 plus and minus 19 volts. So one of those might be going a bit because it's about 20 milliamps, and the other one was 10. So let's check. This is the regulated supply. So these voltages are the ones that run the main computer here. And we'll start with this outside one. So plus 12 volts is pretty much right on the money. With 10 milliamp ripple, that's nice. Minus 12, perfect. 10 milliamps ripple, nice. Now this is the big one, 5 volt. Okay, we're at 4.69, which is low. Should be over 5. And 600 milliamps of ripple. That's bad. That's really bad. You can see that on the scope. We'll see if we can pull it up on a scope, and then we'll take a look. Okay, so from looking at the schematic, this silver capacitor here is the one that's filtering out for the 5 volts supply. Well, let's take a look at it. This is going before the regulator. .8 with 2.15 volts of ripple. That's like horrible. I'm gonna say that this capacitor is kaput. Everything else is fine, but this 5 volt, this is the one capacitor drives the 5 volt regulated supply. So I'm gonna just say right off the get-go that thing is bad. So we're gonna need to order a capacitor before we can get any further. I don't have anything that big in stock. That is a, if I look up here, $18,000 microfarad 10 volt. The big blue one is a 54,000 microfarad 15 volt. So, and that is going to the unregulated 5 volt. So we need to bring this voltage down, so we need to apply that modification. So we're gonna, in one of the future videos, I'm gonna try to get all the parts for this, and we're gonna work on this power supply and bring it down. As you can tell, those cards were burnt right out. Don't know if they work or not anymore. We'll have to check those. So what we need to do is we need to order a new capacitor. So this one seems to check out, that the ripple was fine, it was within specifications more or less. The 2 down on the board I'm going to replace, just because the one was a little bit showing a little bit more ripple. The other one of them's probably fine, but it's going to be hard to find a replacement for this big one that's very similar. This one probably hard too. It's probably going to be a smaller package, but that one definitely needs to be replaced because this is the one that drives basically everything. So that's about as far as we're going to be able to get, because we can't apply power to this because our main 5 volts isn't working. We could probably work with these cards, but that's not going to do anything for us until we can get the main unit going. So to see if we can see anything else in here that's neat. We got a graphics add. So I wonder if this is, I was looking in the schematic, I never saw anything about a board here. I saw stuff about the personality module, but I didn't see anything about a added on video board. It also says made in Canada, so I'm wondering if this is some sort of aftermarket ad. We'll have to look up that information and see what we can find. I don't see any like exploded parts or burning things on here, so I think if we can get this power supply giving us a nice voltage. I'm going to turn on the scope and see if we can take a look at that ripple on the scope. Oh yeah, look at that. You can really see that. That's horrible. That's like, you're not gonna nothing's gonna run with a voltage that looks that bad. Okay, well that's gonna be it for this video. Until next time, when we're gonna get some parts in, I'll see what it's gonna take to get this transformer modification done. I'm gonna turn this off so that we're not stressing anything. But it's not good to run these things without a load. But from what I understand in the manual, to test this, you can test it without the load, and it has a circuit to protect it. When it goes under load, we'll see what happens. But right now, everything's looking good, other than this horrible ripple that's on this power supply on that one thing. So I'm going to order a capacitor here, the 2 capacitors down on the board. See what kind of parts I can get. I'd like to do it tells you what parts to get in the manual to do this transformer modification. So I'd like to try to keep it as original as possible, and definitely needs to be done, because if we're running any other S100 boards in here, we don't want them being stressed like that, having that burning. Okay, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Subscribe to my channel. This is brand new. Hopefully we can make many more of these things. So this is going to be part 1, and then part 2, I guess we'll try to rebuild this supply, and I'll do some more research in the meantime on how this goes, and we'll take it from there. Thank you for watching.